This is why you should never answer a knock late at night. True horror story. If you've ever felt your stomach drop at a knock you weren't expecting, this story is for you. What happened to me wasn't fast, loud, or obvious. It was slow, patient, and deliberate. Stay until the end, because what followed that knock changed how I live, how I sleep, and why I will never open my door late at night again. My name is Daniel Reeves, and for most of my life I believed fear came from imagination. That belief died on a winter night in northern Ohio, the kind of night where the cold presses against the house like a living thing. I was 32 years old then, living alone in a rented farmhouse outside a dying town called Blackwood. The house was old but cheap, isolated but quiet, and I thought the solitude would help me reset my life after a failed marriage and a job I had quit without another lined up. The first weeks passed without incident. Nights were long, silent, and heavy. The nearest neighbor lived nearly a mile away, and the road outside my house saw maybe one car an hour after dark. That isolation felt peaceful until it began to feel watched. I noticed it in small ways at first. The porch light burned out more often than it should have. The mailbox door hung open some mornings. Footprints appeared in the snow that did not match my boots, stopping just short of the porch steps before turning back toward the trees. I told myself it was nothing. Animals, delivery drivers, coincidence. That is how the mind protects itself. The house creaked and groaned at night, but old houses always do. The wind rattled the windows, but winter does that too. Still, I started locking the bedroom door, something I had never done before. Sleep came lighter, thinner, as if something might tear through it if I sank too deeply. The knock came on a Tuesday, just after midnight. I remember the time because I had checked my phone moments before, unable to sleep. The knock was slow and deliberate, heavy enough to vibrate through the front door and into my chest. It was not the frantic knock of someone in danger, nor the casual knock of a neighbor. It was patient, confident, and wrong. I did not answer. I stayed frozen on the couch, staring at the dark hallway that led to the front door. The knock came again, identical to the first, measured and controlled. No voice followed it. No movement on the porch. Just the knock and then silence. Minutes passed. I did not breathe until I heard the wind again. The next morning, I found nothing outside. No footprints. No marks. The porch was clean, untouched. I tried to convince myself I had dreamed it. That almost worked until the knocks started coming regularly. Always late. Always slow. Always silent afterward. They never came 2 nights in a row, and never at the same time. Sometimes it was the front door. Sometimes the back. Once, unmistakably, it came from the bedroom window. Each time, I refused to answer. I would turn off the lights, sit in the dark, and wait until my muscles ached from tension. I told no one. Saying it out loud would make it real, and I was not ready for that. But something else changed. After each knock, the house felt different. The air grew thick. The silence deepened. It felt as if something had stepped closer, even without entering. The dreams began soon after. In them, I stood at my front door, my hand hovering inches from the handle. I could feel the cold metal against my skin without touching it. On the other side, something waited, breathing slowly, perfectly still. I never saw it. I only knew that if I opened the door, I would never close it again. One night, I woke to find the bedroom door wide open. I was certain I had locked it. The hallway beyond was darker than the room itself, a black that swallowed the edges of my vision. The house was silent, but I felt movement in that silence, like pressure building. I lay there until dawn, staring into the dark, afraid that if I blinked, something would cross the threshold. I started researching the house and the land it stood on. Blackwood had once been a logging town, then a factory town, then almost nothing. People left in waves and some never made it out. I found old newspaper clippings about disappearances, about people found frozen on their own porches, doors wide open, faces locked in expressions of shock. Most reports mentioned knocks heard late at night by neighbors who lived too far away to help. The knocks came again on a Friday. 3 of them this time, closer together. I felt them through the floor, through the walls, through my teeth. I stayed where I was, back against the bed, heart hammering. The knocking moved. It started at the front door, then the side of the house, then directly beneath my bedroom window, as if something were testing the structure, learning it. When it stopped, I realized I was no longer alone in the house. The feeling was undeniable. The air pressed against me. The darkness felt crowded. I did not hear footsteps or breathing, but I knew something had crossed a boundary without opening a door. I survived that night by refusing to move. Morning came gray and weak. I packed a bag and left, telling myself I would return later with friends to collect the rest. I never did. 2 weeks after I moved out, the house burned down in what the police called an electrical fire. No bodies were found. No cause was officially determined. The fear did not leave when I did. It followed me into apartments filled with neighbors, into houses with bright windows and busy streets. The knocks never returned in the same way, but the sense of being observed lingered, especially in the hours when the world quieted. I began to notice patterns in my memories of Blackwood that I had ignored before. The way the trees leaned toward the house. The way the road curved as if guiding people there. The way the locals avoided the property without ever explaining why. I eventually tracked down an elderly man who had grown up in the area. He did not want to talk, but when I mentioned the farmhouse, his expression hardened. He told me the land had always demanded invitation, that whatever waited there could not cross a threshold unless acknowledged. Knocking was its method. Patience was its strength. Time meant nothing to it, only eventual access. Looking back, I understand that my refusal was not bravery. It was instinct. Something older than reason recognized a trap. The knocks were never meant to be answered quickly. They were meant to wear down resistance, to normalize the presence, to turn fear into curiosity. I imagined that if I had stayed longer, exhaustion would have done the rest. I still think about the people who did open their doors. About the ones found frozen with terror etched into their faces. About the ones never found at all. I think about how easily loneliness and politeness can become. Curiosity is a quiet weapon. I learned that after leaving Blackwood, when the world tried to return to normal but never quite succeeded. I moved into a small apartment outside Columbus, surrounded by other people, other doors, other sounds. On paper, I was safe. In reality, the experience had rewired something inside me. I slept lightly. I memorized every sound my building made. Elevators, pipes, footsteps, distant traffic. Anything unfamiliar sent a spike of adrenaline through my chest. Months passed without incident, and part of me began to believe the farmhouse had been the problem, not whatever had visited it. I started dating again. I accepted a new job. I even laughed about my paranoia once or twice, calling it stress, burnout, imagination. That confidence was the first mistake. Fear does not disappear. It waits until you stop respecting it. The first new knock came during a thunderstorm in early spring. It was faint, almost polite, coming from my apartment door at 2:14 in the morning. The sound blended with the rain so perfectly that I almost ignored it. Almost. My body reacted before my mind did. My heart raced. My mouth went dry. Every memory of Blackwood surged back at once. I did not move. I did not breathe. The knock came again, identical to the first. Slow, controlled, familiar. No voice followed it. No footsteps retreated down the hallway. Just silence, thick and expectant. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the door, knowing with absolute certainty that whatever stood on the other side was not human, and that distance had never been a limitation for it. The knock did not repeat a third time. Morning came, and when I opened the door in daylight, the hallway was empty. No neighbors had heard anything. No security cameras had caught movement near my unit. Management suggested it was a drunk tenant or kids playing a prank. I nodded and thanked them, knowing they were wrong. After that night, the pattern changed. The knocks became rarer but more deliberate. Not just at doors, but at places that should never be knocked on. A bathroom mirror, a bedroom wall, the ceiling above my bed. Always late. Always when I was alone. Always when I was exhausted enough to consider answering just to make it stop. I began documenting everything. Dates, locations, my emotional state. I noticed something disturbing. The knocks happened more often when I felt isolated, stressed, or overwhelmed. as if it sensed vulnerability or perhaps manufactured it. Sleep deprivation became constant. The dreams returned, more vivid than before. In them, the door was already open, and something stood just outside my field of vision, close enough that I could feel its presence like heat against my skin. I went back to Blackwood once, against my better judgment. The farmhouse was gone, reduced to ash and foundation stones. The land felt wrong, hollow, as if something had been peeled away from it but not fully removed. I spoke to another former resident, a woman named Margaret Holloway, who had lost her brother decades earlier. He had answered a knock late at night, thinking it was a neighbor in trouble. She told me they never found his body, but they did find the door. It had been ripped from its hinges and placed carefully against the porch railing, as if returned. Margaret believed the thing was not bound to the house, but to the act itself. Answering, acknowledging, inviting. She said it learned faces, voices, routines. That once it marked you, distance meant nothing. Only time. Only opportunity. The realization settled into me like a disease. I had not escaped. I had delayed. The knocks were tests, reminders, attempts to weaken my resolve. I understood then why it never forced entry. Why it waited. Whatever it took from people required consent, even if that consent came from exhaustion or fear rather than intent. The final knock happened last year, on a night so quiet it felt staged. No rain. No wind. No background noise. Just me, my apartment, and the sound of knuckles against wood. It came from inside my bedroom door. 3 slow taps, inches from my face. My entire body locked up. I could feel the vibration through the mattress. I stared at the door for what felt like hours. Every instinct screamed to open it, to confront whatever had followed me across years and miles. That urge was the most terrifying part. Not fear, but familiarity. A sense that this had always been inevitable, that resistance was pointless. I did not open the door. I sat there until morning light crept under the frame and the pressure lifted, retreating just enough to breathe again. The knock has not returned since. I do not believe that means it is gone. I believe it is waiting, adjusting its approach, learning patience from me as I learned it from the farmhouse. I live with rules now. I never answer unexpected knocks. I never investigate unexplained sounds. I never assume safety simply because others are nearby. Doors are not barriers. They are agreements. Thresholds are not physical. They are decisions. People like to believe danger announces itself clearly, loudly, obviously. The truth is far worse. Real horror is subtle. It is polite. It asks before it takes. And if you ever hear a knock late at night, slow and deliberate, with no voice behind it, understand this. Whatever is waiting does not need to break in. It only needs you to let it. Some doors are meant to stay closed, no matter how long the knocking continues. If this story unsettled you, remember that fear exists to warn, not to entertain. Listen to it. And if you want more true, dark stories that linger long after the lights go out, subscribe now.